Your partner takes hours to reply. They avoid difficult conversations. They need space after conflict. They seem uncomfortable when emotions become intense. So you open social media, watch 3 videos, and suddenly the answer appears. They're avoidant. And for a moment, the label feels incredibly relieving. Now their behavior makes sense. Now you have an explanation. Maybe you even start thinking, if I understand their attachment style well enough, I'll finally know how to make this relationship work. But there is a problem. A psychological label can help you understand a pattern. It can also stop you from looking at the actual relationship in front of you. Attachment theory is real. People differ in how comfortable they feel with closeness, dependence, vulnerability, and reassurance. Some people become more anxious when connection feels uncertain. Others are more likely to distance themselves when intimacy or conflict becomes uncomfortable. But attachment is not a simple personality test. And avoidant is not a diagnosis that explains every person who withdraws. Sometimes someone needs space because they are overwhelmed. Sometimes they were never taught how to handle emotional conflict. Sometimes the relationship has become so tense that both partners are defensive. Sometimes they communicate differently from you. Sometimes they are emotionally unavailable. And sometimes, they simply do not want the same relationship you want. That last possibility is often the hardest one to accept, because attachment language can give us hope. If they are avoidant, perhaps the distance is not rejection. Perhaps they secretly care deeply. Perhaps if we become more secure, more patient, less demanding, and more understanding, they will finally feel safe enough to come closer. Sometimes relationships do improve when both people understand their patterns. But notice something important. Understanding another person should never require you to abandon your own reality. If you constantly feel confused, ask yourself what is actually happening rather than what label explains it. Do they communicate consistently? When conflict happens, do they eventually return to the conversation? Can they hear your needs without treating every need as pressure? Do they take responsibility when their behavior hurts you? Are they willing to work on the relationship? Can the two of you negotiate differences? Those questions tell you more about the health of a relationship than a label alone. Because two people can have insecure attachment patterns and still build a respectful relationship if they both have awareness, accountability, and willingness to change. And someone can know every attachment term on the internet and still refuse responsibility. There is another trap here. Once we label someone avoidant, we may start interpreting everything through that label. They are quiet. Avoidant. They need a weekend alone. Avoidant. They disagree with us. Avoidant. They end the relationship. Avoidant discard. At that point, psychology is no longer helping us observe reality. It is filtering reality. The same thing can happen with anxious attachment. A person may genuinely have a pattern of reassurance seeking or fear of abandonment. But not every desire for closeness is unhealthy anxiety. Wanting regular communication is not automatically needy. Wanting emotional availability is not automatically insecurity. The question is whether the need and the behavior around that need are flexible, respectful, and sustainable for both people. So how can attachment theory actually help? Use it first as a mirror, not a weapon. Instead of asking, "What attachment style is my partner?" start with, What happens inside me when connection feels uncertain? Do I chase? Do I withdraw? Do I become controlling? Do I shut down? Do I stop expressing what I need? Then ask, what pattern do we create together? Maybe one person pursues harder when anxious, and the other withdraws further when pressured. The more one chases, the more the other escapes. The more the other escapes, the more the first person chases. Now we are looking at a cycle instead of blaming a person, and cycles can be interrupted. You can slow down conflict. Name the pattern. Ask directly for what you need. Set limits around behavior that is not acceptable. Give reasonable space without disappearing from the relationship. And most importantly, notice whether both people are participating in change. Because no attachment framework can build a relationship for two people if only one person is doing the work. So before asking, is my partner avoidant? Try asking, whatever we call this pattern, does this relationship allow both of us to feel heard, respected, and emotionally safe enough to be ourselves? That question may be less satisfying than a label, but it is often much more useful. This is Channel Psychology for Life. Follow for grounded psychology that helps you understand relationships without reducing people to labels.